I stood in that conference room, feeling my heart turn to stone, as Marcus threw my project folder across the table and said the words that would haunt me for weeks. "You're useless, Emma. Completely useless." 20 people watched. 20 colleagues I'd worked beside for 3 years. Not one of them looked at me. Not one. "Sarah will be taking over your accounts," Marcus continued, his voice cold and sharp. "Effective immediately. Sarah. My assistant. The woman I'd trained from day one. She didn't even have the decency to look sorry. If you're enjoying this so far, don't forget to like the video and watch till the end. I'd love to hear your thoughts." That morning started like any other. I woke up at 5:30, went for my run, made my coffee. I had no idea that in 4 hours, my entire life would detonate. I wore my navy suit. The one Marcus once said made me look executive material. I actually believed him back then. I believed a lot of things back then. The email came at 9:15. Emergency meeting. Conference room B 10 minutes. My stomach dropped. Emergency meetings were never good. But I told myself to breathe. I'd just closed the Henderson account. $3 million. 6 months of negotiations. I'd done everything right. I gathered my files and walked down that hallway. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. My heels clicked against the tile. Everything felt normal. Everything felt fine. I was so stupid. The conference room was already full when I arrived. Marcus sat at the head of the table, his fingers steepled under his chin. Sarah sat to his right. She was wearing red. Bright, confident red. I should have known then. "Sit down, Emma," Marcus said. Saturday. He didn't waste time. "The Henderson account is falling apart." My blood went cold. "What?" "No. I just finalized everything yesterday. They signed." "They're pulling out," Marcus said flatly. "They said you misrepresented our capabilities. That you promised deliverables we can't meet." The room tilted. "That's not true. I have documentation. Every single promise I made was cleared through you, Marcus. You approved everything." He smiled. Actually smiled. "Do you have that in writing?" My throat closed. The approvals had been verbal. Quick conversations in his office. Nods in the hallway. He'd always said he trusted me, that we didn't need to formalize every little thing. "You know I don't," I whispered. "Then it's your word against mine." He leaned back in his chair. "And frankly, Emma, your word doesn't carry much weight right now." Someone coughed. I looked around the table. These people knew me. They knew how I worked. But they all stared at their laptops, their notepads, anywhere but at me. "This is insane," I said, my voice shaking. "I did everything right. You know I did." Marcus picked up my project folder. The one I'd spent months perfecting. He flipped through it like it was garbage. Then he threw it across the table. Papers scattered everywhere. That's when he said it. "You're useless, Emma. Completely useless." The words hit like a physical blow. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. "Sarah's been shadowing your work," Marcus continued. "She understands the accounts better than you do at this point. She'll be taking over. Effective immediately." I looked at Sarah. Really looked at her. She met my eyes for just a second. There was no guilt there. No remorse. Just cold calculation. "You can't do this," I said. I just did. Marcus stood up. "Clean out your desk by end of day. HR will process your termination paperwork." The room spun. Termination. He wasn't just taking my accounts. He was firing me. On what grounds? Incompetence. Misrepresentation. Take your pick. He buttoned his suit jacket. "This meeting is over." Everyone filed out. One by one, they walked past me like I was invisible. 3 years of early mornings and late nights. 3 years of bringing in clients and exceeding quotas. Gone. Sarah was the last to leave. She paused at the door. "Nothing personal," she said softly. I wanted to scream. To throw something. To make her feel even a fraction of what I felt. But I just sat there, surrounded by scattered papers, and watched her walk away. I don't remember walking back to my desk. I don't remember packing my things. It was like watching myself from outside my body. My hands moved. Items disappeared into a cardboard box. A photo frame. A coffee mug. A plant that was probably dead anyway. Emma. I looked up. It was Tom from accounting. We'd started the same week 3 years ago. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "This is wrong." "Then why didn't you say something?" The words came out harder than I meant them to. He looked down. "I have a family. A mortgage. I can't, I know." I taped up the box. "I understand." But I didn't. Not really. Security escorted me out at 3:45. Like I was a criminal. Like I'd stolen something instead of giving this company everything I had. The afternoon sun was too bright. The parking lot stretched out like a desert. I sat in my car for 20 minutes before I could make myself turn the key. My phone rang. It was my mom. "Hey, sweetie. How was work?" I opened my mouth. Closed it. Opened it again. "Emma. I got fired," I said. The words felt unreal. Like saying them out loud would make them true. "What? Honey, what happened?" I told her everything. The meeting. Marcus. Sarah. The accusations that made no sense. "That's wrongful termination," my mom said, her voice sharp with anger. "You need to call a lawyer." "With what money, Mom?" "I have maybe 3 months of savings if I'm lucky." She was quiet for a moment. "Come home. Stay with us until you figure this out. I'm 32 years old. I'm not moving back in with my parents. Pride isn't going to pay your rent, Emma." She was right. She was always right. But the thought of going backward, of admitting defeat, made me want to drive off a bridge. "I'll figure something out," I said. "I always do." I hung up before she could argue. That night, I sat on my apartment floor with a bottle of wine I couldn't afford and my laptop. I updated my resume. Sent out applications. 27 of them. Professional. Polite. Desperate. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "You should have seen this coming." My hands shook. I blocked the number. But 5 minutes later, another text from a different number. "Marcus always wins. You were just too stupid to realize it." I turned off my phone and drank until the room stopped spinning. The next 2 weeks were a blur of rejection emails and dwindling bank accounts. I'd wake up at 5:30 out of habit, then remember I had nowhere to go. No meetings. No deadlines. No purpose. I started taking walks. Long, aimless walks through the city. Anything to get out of my apartment. Anything to feel like I still existed. On day 9, I walked past a coffee shop and saw Sarah through the window. She was with Marcus. They were laughing. Actually laughing. She touched his arm. He leaned in close. I understood everything in that moment. This wasn't about my performance. It was never about my performance. Marcus wanted Sarah. And I was in the way. I stood there on the sidewalk, watching them through the glass, and something inside me cracked open. Not sadness. Not anymore. Rage. Pure, cold, clarifying rage. I went home and opened my laptop. I had copies of everything. Every email. Every contract. Every shady deal Marcus had ever made. I'd been his right hand for 3 years. I knew where all the bodies were buried. And I was about to dig them up. But first, I needed help. Real help. I called the one person I'd been avoiding. The one person who'd warned me about Marcus from the beginning. "Hello. David," I said. "I need your help." My brother was silent for a moment. "I'm listening." David was a corporate lawyer. The kind that made other lawyers nervous. He tried to tell me about Marcus 2 years ago, after meeting him at a company holiday party. Said something felt off. Said I should be careful. I hadn't listened. "I was wrong," I said. "You were right about Marcus. About everything. Tell me what happened." I told him. All of it. When I finished, he was quiet for so long I thought the call had dropped. David, do you have documentation? Of everything. Send it to me. All of it. Tonight. What are you thinking? I'm thinking Marcus just made the biggest mistake of his life. I could hear the smile in his voice. Emma, do you know who actually owns the company? My stomach dropped. Marcus does. He's the CEO. He's the CEO. But the ownership structure is more complicated than that. Do you remember 3 years ago, when they brought in outside investors? Vaguely. Marcus handled all of that. Those investors now own 60% of the company. Marcus only owns 40%, and I happen to know the lead investor. We went to law school together. My heart started pounding. What are you saying? I'm saying that if we can prove Marcus is running the company into the ground, engaging in fraud, or creating a hostile work environment, the investors can vote him out. Can we prove that? You tell me. Send me everything you have. I spent the entire night compiling files. Emails where Marcus had forged client signatures. Contracts he'd altered after they were signed. Messages where he'd told me to lie to auditors. I'd kept everything. Not because I thought I'd need it someday, but because something about deleting them felt wrong. I sent David 47 documents at 3 in the morning. He called me at 7. This is even worse than I thought, he said. Emma, Marcus has been embezzling from the company. Do you see this pattern of wire transfers? I pulled up the file. The ones to Cascade Consulting? Cascade Consulting doesn't exist. It's a shell company. Marcus created it to siphon money. We're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars. My mouth went dry. How did I miss this? Because you trusted him. And he counted on that. David's voice hardened. Here's what's going to happen. I'm going to reach out to the investors. Quietly. Show them what we have. If they're smart, they'll remove Marcus immediately. And if they're not smart, then we go to the SEC. But that's messy and takes forever. This way is faster. What do I do? Nothing. Stay quiet. Don't contact anyone from the company. Don't post anything on social media. Just wait. Waiting was torture. Every hour felt like a week. I kept imagining Marcus and Sarah in that conference room, dividing up my accounts, erasing me like I'd never existed. But I didn't break. I didn't call. I didn't text. I waited. On day 12, David called. The investors want to meet with you. My heart stopped. When? Tomorrow. 2 o'clock. Can you be ready? Yes. Emma. His voice softened. This is going to work. Trust me. I wore the navy suit. The one Marcus said made me look executive material. But this time, I wasn't trying to impress anyone. I was going to war. The meeting was at a law office downtown. Glass and steel and intimidation. David met me in the lobby. You okay? He asked. No. But I will be. He squeezed my shoulder. Remember, just tell the truth. They've already seen the documents. We rode the elevator to the 15th floor. My reflection stared back at me in the metal doors. I looked older. Harder. Good. The conference room held 3 people. 2 men and a woman, all in expensive suits. David introduced them as the primary investors. Catherine. Robert. James. Catherine spoke first. Thank you for coming, Emma. We've reviewed the materials your brother provided. We have questions. For 2 hours, they questioned me about everything. Every email. Every transaction. Every lie Marcus had told. I answered clearly. Calmly. With documentation for every claim. When it was over, Catherine stood and extended her hand. Thank you for your courage in bringing this forward. We'll be in touch. That was it. No promises. No guarantees. I left feeling deflated. Exhausted. Did I do okay? I asked David. You did great. But he looked worried. 3 days passed. Nothing happened. Then, on day 15, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Hello. Emma, This is Catherine. We'd like to offer you a position. I sat down hard. I'm sorry, what? We're removing Marcus as CEO effective immediately. The company needs leadership. Someone who knows the business and can clean up this mess. She paused. We'd like that person to be you. The world stopped spinning. I don't understand. We're offering you the position of CEO. You'd report directly to the board. Your first priority would be stabilizing operations and rebuilding client trust. Interested? I couldn't breathe. Yes. Yes, I'm interested. Good. We'll announce the change Monday morning. Marcus doesn't know yet. We thought you might like to be there when we tell him. A cold smile spread across my face. I would love that. 9 a.m. Monday. Same conference room where he fired you. I hung up and sat in stunned silence. Then I started laughing. Actually laughing. The kind of laughter that turns into tears. I called David. They offered me CEO. He whooped so loud I had to pull the phone away from my ear. I knew it. I knew they would. Marcus doesn't know yet. They're telling him Monday morning. In the same conference room. Poetic justice. Are you scared? Terrified. I wiped my eyes. But I'm ready. That weekend lasted forever. I couldn't eat. Couldn't sleep. I kept playing it over in my head. Walking into that room. Seeing Marcus's face. Knowing that everything he'd taken from me was about to be taken from him. Monday morning, I arrived at 8:30. Catherine met me in the lobby. Ready? She asked. As I'll ever be. We rode the elevator up. I walked those familiar hallways one more time. Past my old desk. Past Sarah's new office. Past everything I'd lost. Conference room B. The same one. Marcus was already there, looking irritated. When he saw me, confusion flashed across his face. Then anger. What is she doing here? He demanded. Catherine sat down. Marcus, the board has decided to make a leadership change. His face went pale. What kind of change? You're being removed as CEO. Effective immediately. For a moment, he just stared. Then he laughed. You can't do that. We own 60% of the company. We absolutely can do that. Catherine slid a folder across the table. We have evidence of embezzlement, fraud, and multiple breaches of fiduciary duty. You're lucky we're not pressing criminal charges. Marcus opened the folder. His hands started shaking. He looked at me. You did this. No, I said calmly. You did this. I just made sure everyone found out. You vindictive, choose your next words carefully, Catherine interrupted. Emma is our new CEO. You'll be escorted out by security. Today. The color drained from his face completely. Emma. You're making her CEO? She knows the business. She has client relationships. And unlike you, she's not a criminal. Catherine stood. Security is waiting outside. You have 10 minutes to collect your personal belongings. Marcus looked at me with pure hatred. This isn't over. Yes, I said quietly. It is. Security came in. The same guards who'd escorted me out 2 weeks ago. They looked uncomfortable now. It's okay, I told them. Just doing your job. Marcus stood on shaking legs. As he passed me, he leaned in close. You'll fail. You'll crash this company into the ground. I met his eyes. If you really believed that, you wouldn't be so scared. They led him away. I sat down in his chair. It was still warm. Catherine pulled out another folder. Sarah's termination is being processed as we speak. We found evidence she was complicit in the embezzlement scheme. My chest tightened. She was in on it. From the beginning. She was going to be his replacement CFO after he'd stolen enough to retire. The whole thing was planned. Catherine's expression softened. I'm sorry. I know she was your assistant. She was never my assistant, I said. She was his accomplice. I was just too blind to see it. The door opened. Tom from accounting stood there, looking nervous. I heard what happened, he said. I just wanted to say congratulations. And I'm sorry. For not speaking up. I studied him for a moment. He'd been a coward. But he was here now. Thank you, Tom. I appreciate that. He nodded and left. Catherine gathered her things. The staff meeting is at 10. You'll need to address everyone. Let them know about the changes. My stomach clenched. What do I say? The truth. Tell them what happened. Tell them where we're going from here. She smiled. You've got this, Emma. At 9:55, I stood outside conference room A. The big one. Where all hands meetings happened. Through the glass, I could see everyone gathering. Confused. Worried. Whispering. I took a deep breath and walked in. The room went silent. Every eye turned to me. I saw shock. Confusion. And on a few faces, shame. Good morning, I said, my voice steady. I'm sure you're all wondering what's happening. Marcus is no longer with the company. As of today, I'm your new CEO. The silence was deafening. I know many of you watched him humiliate me 2 weeks ago. Some of you probably believed what he said about me. That's okay. I understand why you stayed quiet. I paused. But things are going to be different now. This company was built on talent and hard work. Not on fear and manipulation. We're going back to that. A hand went up. Jennifer from marketing. What about the Henderson account? The Henderson account never fell apart. Marcus lied about that to justify firing me. I've already reached out to Mr. Henderson. He's agreed to reinstate the contract. I pulled out my phone. He sent this email an hour ago. I projected it on the screen. Everyone leaned forward to read it. We're also conducting an audit of all current accounts and contracts. If you've been asked to do anything unethical, now is the time to come forward. No retaliation. No consequences. We're cleaning house. Tom raised his hand. What happens to people who stayed silent? When they shouldn't have? I looked at him. At all of them. We move forward. Together. But if anyone here thinks they can play the same games Marcus did, the door is that way. I pointed. I won't tolerate it. Not for a second. The meeting lasted an hour. People asked questions. Aired grievances. Some cried. It was messy and painful and necessary. When it ended, several people came up to me. Thank you, Jennifer said. I was about to quit. Marcus was making this place unbearable. I'm glad you stayed, I told her. We're going to need good people to rebuild. Over the next few days, I dove into the wreckage Marcus had left behind. It was worse than I'd imagined. Client relationships damaged. Contracts with poison pills. Employees burned out and demoralized. But slowly, piece by piece, we started fixing it. I called every major client personally. Apologized for the chaos. Promised transparency going forward. Some were skeptical. Some were angry. But most were willing to give us another chance. The Henderson account became our flagship again. Mr. Henderson even agreed to introduce us to 3 more potential clients. I always liked working with you, Emma, he told me over lunch. Marcus was a snake. I only dealt with him because I had to. This is much better. 6 weeks after taking over, I had my first board meeting as CEO. I presented our recovery plan. New policies. New leadership structure. New culture. Catherine smiled. This is exactly what we hoped for. Well done. Walking out of that meeting, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Pride. Real, earned pride. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Congratulations, Emma. You earned this. It was Marcus. I stared at the message for a long time. Part of me wanted to respond. To gloat. To make sure he knew exactly how much he'd lost. But I didn't. I blocked the number and kept walking. 3 months later, the company was thriving. We'd brought in 5 new clients. Revenue was up. Employee satisfaction scores had doubled. I was in my office, reviewing quarterly reports, when reception called. There's someone here to see you. She doesn't have an appointment. Who is it? A pause. She says her name is Sarah. My blood went cold. Tell security, she says she just wants 5 minutes. To apologize. I closed my eyes. Every instinct screamed to say no. To have her thrown out. But I'd been where she was. Desperate. Humiliated. Looking for some kind of redemption. 5 minutes, I said. And security stays right outside. Sarah looked terrible. Her hair was unwashed. Her clothes wrinkled. The confident woman in red was gone. She sat down across from me, hands shaking. "Thank you for seeing me," she said quietly. I didn't respond. Just waited. "I came to apologize. For everything. For betraying you. For lying. For being part of Marcus's scheme." Her eyes filled with tears. "I don't expect forgiveness. I just needed you to know that I'm sorry." "Why did you do it?" I asked. She wiped her eyes. "He promised me everything. Money. Power. A future. I was stupid enough to believe him." "You weren't stupid. You were ambitious. There's a difference." She looked up, surprised. "Ambition isn't the problem," I continued. "It's how you pursue it. You chose the easy path. The dishonest path. And it cost you everything." "I know." Her voice broke. "I can't find work anywhere. Everyone knows what I did. I'm blacklisted." Part of me felt satisfaction at that. The same cold satisfaction I'd felt watching Marcus get escorted out. But mostly, I just felt tired. "What do you want from me?" I asked. "Nothing. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. You deserved better. You deserved honesty." She stood up. "I won't bother you again." She turned to leave. "Sarah." She stopped. "I'm not giving you your job back. And I'm not giving you a reference. But I will give you some advice." She waited. "Stop looking for shortcuts. Do the work. Earn your reputation back. It'll take years. Maybe decades. But it's the only way forward." She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "Thank you." After she left, I sat at my desk for a long time. Thinking about revenge. About justice. About what it meant to win. I'd gotten everything I wanted. Marcus was gone. Sarah was gone. I had power, respect, success. But standing on their graves didn't feel the way I thought it would. It just felt empty. That night, I went home to my apartment. It wasn't much bigger than before. I hadn't moved. Hadn't upgraded. I'd been too busy rebuilding. I poured a glass of wine and stood at my window, looking out at the city. My phone rang. My mom. "Hey, sweetie. How are you?" "I'm okay, Mom. Better than okay, actually. I saw the article about you in the business journal. CEO at 32. I'm so proud." My throat tightened. "Thanks, Mom. Are you happy?" The question caught me off guard. "I don't know. I'm successful." "Is that the same thing?" She was quiet for a moment. "No, honey. It's not." After we hung up, I thought about that. About happiness. About what I'd sacrificed to get here. I'd proven everyone wrong. I'd won. But I'd also become harder. Colder. Less trusting. Was it worth it? 6 months after becoming CEO, I hired a new assistant. Her name was Maya. She was young, eager, talented. She reminded me of myself at that age. "I won't let you down," she promised on her first day. "I know you won't," I said. "But Maya, can I give you some advice?" "Of course. Don't trust anyone completely. Not even me. Verify everything. Keep your own records. Protect yourself." She looked confused. "Don't you want me to trust you?" "I want you to trust yourself more." I smiled. "That's the only way to survive in this world." She nodded slowly. "What happened to you?" I considered lying. Giving her some corporate platitude about resilience and growth. But she deserved the truth. I trusted someone who didn't deserve it. And I paid for it. "I don't want that to happen to you." Maya studied me for a moment. "Did you get revenge?" "Yes." "Did it help?" I thought about Marcus, probably working some entry-level job somewhere, humiliated and broken. About Sarah, blacklisted and desperate. It helped me survive, I said honestly. But it didn't make me whole again. Then what will? I didn't have an answer for that. A year after everything happened, the board offered me a permanent contract. 5 years. Substantial equity. Everything I'd worked for. I signed it without hesitation. The company was thriving. We'd doubled revenue. Expanded into 3 new markets. Won industry awards. I was featured in magazines. Invited to speak at conferences. On the outside, I had everything. But at night, alone in my apartment, I still thought about that conference room. About Marcus's voice saying you're useless. About 20 people who watched and said nothing. The wound had scabbed over. But it hadn't healed. One evening, I was working late when Tom knocked on my office door. "Got a minute?" he asked. "Sure. Come in." He sat down, looking nervous. "I wanted to thank you for giving me a second chance. After everything. You're good at your job, Tom. That's all that matters. Still. A lot of people wouldn't have been so understanding." He paused. "Can I ask you something?" "Go ahead. Do you ever regret it? Taking this job? All the pressure and responsibility." I leaned back in my chair. "Sometimes. Late at night, when I'm reviewing contracts or dealing with board politics, I wonder what my life would be like if I just walked away. Started over somewhere else." "Why didn't you?" "Because they didn't get to win." The words came out harder than I intended. Marcus tried to destroy me. To erase me. And I refused to let him. Tom nodded slowly. "Was it worth it?" I looked around my office. At the awards on the wall. The city view. The evidence of everything I'd built. "Ask me again in 10 years, I said. 2 years after becoming CEO, I got an email from Marcus. The subject line was an apology. I stared at it for 20 minutes before opening it. "Emma, I know you have no reason to read this, let alone believe it. But I owe you an apology. What I did to you was unforgivable. I destroyed your career, your reputation, and your trust in people. All because I was greedy and stupid and thought I could get away with it. I've spent the last 2 years in therapy, trying to understand why I became the person I became. Trying to take responsibility for the damage I caused. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I wanted you to know that I'm sorry. Truly, deeply sorry. I hope you're doing well. You deserved better than what I gave you. Marcus." I read it 3 times. Then I deleted it. Some wounds don't need closure. They just need time. 3 years after everything changed, I was invited to speak at a women's leadership conference. The topic was resilience. Standing on that stage, looking out at hundreds of faces, I felt the weight of my story. 3 years ago, I began. My boss called me useless in front of 20 people and fired me. It was the worst day of my life. I went home that night convinced my career was over. That I'd never recover. The room was silent. 2 weeks later, I became the CEO of that same company. And I want to tell you that it felt amazing. That revenge was sweet and justice was served and everything was perfect. I paused. But that would be a lie. Because the truth is, winning doesn't heal you. Success doesn't erase trauma. And revenge, no matter how justified, doesn't make you whole again. I saw some people nodding. Others looked confused. What does heal you is choosing to move forward anyway. To rebuild your life piece by piece. To trust again, even when it's terrifying. To be vulnerable again, even when every instinct tells you to build walls. My voice cracked. I hadn't expected that. I'm still learning how to do that. 3 years later, I'm still learning. But I'm here. I'm standing. And I'm telling you that no matter what happens, no matter who betrays you or hurts you or tries to destroy you, you can survive it. You can rebuild. You can thrive. The applause was thunderous. Afterward, a young woman approached me. She couldn't have been more than 25. "Thank you for that speech," she said. "I was just fired last week. My boss said I wasn't good enough. I've been thinking about giving up. I looked at her. Really looked at her. I saw myself 3 years ago. Broken and desperate and convinced the world had ended. Don't give up, I said. Not yet. Give yourself time. Document everything. Find people who believe in you. And when you're ready, fight back. She nodded, tears in her eyes. Did it get easier for you? I thought about my sleepless nights. My trust issues. The walls I'd built that still hadn't come down. No, I admitted. But it got different. And sometimes different is enough. 5 years after becoming CEO, I stepped down. It wasn't a dramatic exit. No scandal. No burnout. I just woke up one morning and realized I didn't want to do it anymore. The company was stable. Profitable. Well-positioned for the future. My work was done. I announced my resignation at a board meeting. Catherine looked surprised. Are you sure? She asked. You've built something incredible here. I know. And I'm proud of it. But it's time for someone else to lead. What will you do? I don't know yet. Travel. Rest. Figure out who I am when I'm not running a company. On my last day, the entire staff gathered in the lobby. They'd planned a surprise farewell. Speeches. Gifts. Tears. Maya, my assistant who'd become a director, handed me a card signed by everyone. Thank you for teaching us what real leadership looks like, she said. I hugged her. Thank you for reminding me why it matters. Walking out of that building for the last time, I felt something unexpected. Relief. The weight I'd been carrying for 5 years lifted. The constant pressure. The need to prove myself. The fear of failing. All of it, gone. I drove to the coffee shop where I'd seen Marcus and Sarah that day. The day everything changed. I ordered a coffee and sat by the window. My phone buzzed. A text from David. Proud of you, sis. For everything. I smiled and replied. Thanks for believing in me when no one else did. Always. I sat there for a long time, watching people walk by. Living their lives. Carrying their own burdens and battles. And I realized something. Marcus calling me useless wasn't the worst thing that ever happened to me. It was the catalyst. The thing that forced me to stop being small. Stop playing it safe. Stop waiting for someone else to give me permission to be extraordinary. He thought he was destroying me. But he just woke me up. 6 months after leaving the company, I was sitting in a coffee shop in Barcelona when I saw him. Marcus. He was at a table in the corner, hunched over a laptop. He looked older. Tired. Defeated. Part of me wanted to leave. To avoid the confrontation. But another part of me, the part that had spent 5 years running a company and proving everyone wrong, wanted answers. I walked over to his table. Hello, Marcus. He looked up. Recognition flashed across his face, followed by shame. Emma. I didn't expect to see you here. I'm traveling. Taking time off. I gestured to the empty chair. Can I sit? He nodded, looking wary. We sat in silence for a moment. Then he spoke. I read about your resignation. Congratulations on everything you accomplished. Thank you. I mean it. You turned that company around. Made it better than it ever was under me. I had good people helping me. He nodded. I was an idiot. A greedy, arrogant idiot. And I paid for it. What are you doing now? I asked. Consulting. Helping small businesses with operations. Nothing glamorous. But it's honest work. Good. He looked at me directly for the first time. Did you get what you wanted? Revenge? I considered the question. I got justice. I'm not sure that's the same thing. Did it make you feel better? For a while, I admitted. But revenge is like junk food. It tastes good in the moment, but it doesn't really nourish you. He smiled sadly. That's surprisingly wise. I had a lot of time to think about it. I paused. Can I ask you something? Of course. Why did you do it? Why did you destroy me like that? Marcus was quiet for a long time. When he finally spoke, His voice was barely above a whisper. Because you were good. Really good. And I felt myself becoming irrelevant. Every client wanted to work with you. Every employee respected you more than me. I was supposed to be the CEO, the leader, but everyone knew you were the real talent. He looked down at his hands. So I convinced myself you were a threat. That I had to eliminate you before you eliminated me. I never wanted your job, Marcus. I was loyal to you. I know that now. But back then, all I could see was my own fear. He met my eyes. Sarah was just an excuse. A way to justify what I was planning to do anyway. And she was willing to help because I promised her the world. Did you love her? He laughed bitterly. No. It was transactional. For both of us. We deserved each other. I should have felt satisfaction hearing him admit all of this. Vindication. Victory. But I just felt sad. I forgive you, I heard myself say. Marcus's head snapped up. What? I forgive you. Not because you deserve it. But because I'm tired of carrying anger around. It's exhausting. His eyes filled with tears. Emma, I'm not saying we're friends. I'm not saying what you did was okay. But I'm choosing to let it go. For me. Not for you. He nodded, unable to speak. I stood up. Good luck with your consulting business, Marcus. I hope you find whatever you're looking for. I walked away without looking back. That night, sitting on my hotel balcony overlooking the Mediterranean, I felt something shift inside me. Like a locked door finally opening. For 5 years, I'd defined myself by what happened in that conference room. By Marcus's betrayal. By my revenge. By my success. But none of that was really me. I was more than my trauma. More than my triumphs. More than the CEO title or the revenge story. I was just Emma. Flawed and complicated and still figuring things out. And that was enough. I picked up my phone and called my mom. Hey, sweetie. How's Barcelona? Beautiful. Mom, I've been thinking. About what? You asked me a long time ago if I was happy. I said I didn't know. But I think I'm starting to figure it out. And happiness isn't the same as winning. It's not about proving people wrong or getting revenge or being successful. It's quieter than that. Simpler. My mom was quiet. Then she said, I'm glad you're learning that now. Some people never do. I wasted so much time being angry. No, honey. You survived. And now you're healing. That's not a waste. After we hung up, I sat there watching the sun set over the water. Tourists walked by, laughing and taking photos. Life continuing in its messy, beautiful way. My phone buzzed. An email from Maya. Emma, I wanted to let you know I'm being promoted to VP. I couldn't have done it without everything you taught me. Thank you for showing me what real leadership looks like. P.S. I'm also learning to trust myself more. You were right about that. I smiled and typed back. Congratulations, Maya. You earned this. Lead with integrity. And remember, you're allowed to be human. 1 year after leaving the company, I started a non-profit. We helped women who'd been wrongfully terminated or discriminated against in the workplace. Legal support. Career counseling. A community of people who understood. It wasn't glamorous. There were no corner offices or board meetings. Just hard work and the satisfaction of helping people rebuild their lives. One afternoon, a woman named Jennifer came to our office. She'd been fired by her boss after reporting sexual harassment. She was devastated. Broken. I sat across from her and said, I know this feels like the end. But it's not. It's just the beginning of something different. How do you know? She asked. Because I've been exactly where you are. And I'm here to tell you that you'll survive this. You'll rebuild. And one day, you'll use this experience to help someone else. She looked at me with desperate hope. You really believe that? I know it. Working with those women taught me something I'd never learned as CEO. That real power isn't about titles or revenge or proving people wrong. It's about lifting others up. About transforming pain into purpose. About breaking cycles instead of perpetuating them. 2 years after leaving, I met someone. His name was Daniel. He was a teacher. Kind, patient, completely outside the corporate world. On our third date, he asked about my career. I used to be a CEO, I said. But that's not who I am anymore. So who are you? I thought about it. Really thought about it. I'm someone who survived something terrible and decided to help other people survive too. I'm someone who's still learning to trust. Still learning to be vulnerable. Still learning to let people in. He smiled. I like that person. Even though she's complicated. Especially because she's complicated. 6 months later, he moved in. It was terrifying. Letting someone that close. Risking being hurt again. But it was also wonderful. He'd find me awake at 3 in the morning, working on case files for the nonprofit, and bring me tea without asking. He'd listen to me talk about the women we were helping and never make it about him. He'd hold me when the nightmares came, the ones where I was back in that conference room, and never ask for explanations. You don't have to tell me everything, he said once. But I'm here when you're ready. And slowly, carefully, I started letting him in. 3 years after everything began, I got a letter. Handwritten. No return address. Dear Emma, you don't know me, but I know you. I read an article about your nonprofit. About how you help women who've been wronged in the workplace. I want you to know that your story gave me courage to report my boss for fraud. It cost me my job. But it was the right thing to do. Because of you, I knew I could survive it. Thank you for being brave first. So the rest of us could be brave too. I read that letter 5 times. Then I put it in a box with all the others that had arrived over the past year. Dozens of them. From women all over the country. All saying the same thing. Your story mattered. Your survival mattered. You gave me hope. That night, Daniel found me crying at the kitchen table. What's wrong? He asked. Nothing's wrong. I showed him the letter. Everything's right. For the first time in years, everything's right. He wrapped his arms around me. I'm proud of you. For what? For turning the worst thing that ever happened to you into the best thing you've ever done. 5 years after Marcus called me useless, I was invited back to the company. They were hosting an event to honor my tenure as CEO. They wanted to name a mentorship program after me. I almost said no. The thought of going back to that building, those hallways, that conference room, made my chest tight. But Maya called me personally. Please come, she said. You have no idea how much you changed this place. How many women are in leadership positions now because you showed them it was possible. So I went. Walking into that lobby felt surreal. Like stepping into a memory that wasn't quite real. Everything looked the same but different. Updated. Brighter. The event was packed. Employees I'd never met. Clients from my tenure. Board members who'd believed in me. Catherine gave a speech about my impact. About how I'd taken a failing company and turned it into an industry leader. About the culture I'd built. The lives I'd changed. Then it was my turn to speak. I walked to the podium and looked out at all those faces. Young women in business suits. Men who looked like they actually cared. A company that felt alive again. Thank you for this honor, I began. But I need to be honest with you. When I walked into this building today, I felt afraid. Because this place holds both my greatest trauma and my greatest triumph. The room was silent. 5 years ago, I was humiliated here. Destroyed here. I left this building thinking my life was over. And in many ways, it was. The person I was before that day died in that conference room. She had to die. Because she was too trusting. Too naive. Too willing to sacrifice herself for people who didn't deserve it. I saw some people shifting uncomfortably. But something else was born that day too. Someone stronger. Someone who refused to be erased. Someone who understood that survival is a choice you make every single morning. I paused, gathering my thoughts. The mentorship program you're naming after me, I want it to teach young women something important. Not just about leadership or business strategy, but about resilience. About how to survive betrayal. About how to rebuild when everything falls apart. Because that's the real skill we need in this world. Not how to win, but how to get back up when we lose. The applause was overwhelming. People stood. Some were crying. Afterward, a young intern approached me. She looked like I did at 25. Hopeful. Eager. Unbroken. "Can I ask you something?" she said. "Of course. Do you regret it? Everything that happened?" "Because if it hadn't happened, you wouldn't be where you are now." It was a question I'd asked myself 1,000 times. "I regret the pain," I said slowly. "I regret the betrayal and the nightmares and the years I spent angry. But do I regret who I became because of it? No. I don't. So it was worth it." I looked at her for a long moment. I wouldn't wish what happened to me on anyone. But I also wouldn't trade who I am now for who I was before. Does that make sense? She nodded. "I think so. Just promise me something," I said. "If something terrible happens to you, and I hope it doesn't, but if it does, remember that you're stronger than you think. That survival is possible. That there's life after devastation." "I promise," she whispered. That night, Daniel and I sat on our couch, my head on his shoulder. "How do you feel?" he asked. "Lighter. Like I finally let go of something I've been carrying for too long. The anger. The need to justify what happened. To make it mean something. To turn my pain into a story with a neat moral." I shifted to look at him. Sometimes bad things just happen. And we survive them. And that's enough. He kissed my forehead. "I love you. I love you too." It was the first time either of us had said it. 7 years after everything changed, I was at a coffee shop when I saw Sarah again. She looked different. Healthier. More at peace. She was with a young woman, talking animatedly about something. Our eyes met across the room. She froze. I could have looked away. Pretended I didn't see her. It would have been easier. But I walked over to her table. "Hello, Sarah." The young woman with her looked confused. Sarah stood up. "Emma. Hi. This is my mentee, Rachel. I volunteer with a program that helps women getting back into the workforce." I looked at Rachel. "What's your story?" She hesitated, then said, "I made some mistakes. Lost my career. I'm trying to rebuild." "Sarah's helping you." "She is. She's been really honest about her own mistakes. It helps, knowing someone understands." I looked at Sarah. Really looked at her. She wasn't the confident woman in red anymore. Or the desperate person who'd come to apologize. She was something else now. Someone who'd done the hard work of changing. "Can I talk to you for a minute?" I asked Sarah. "Alone?" We stepped outside. The afternoon sun was warm. "You're mentoring women?" I asked. I know it sounds hypocritical, given everything I did. But I wanted to help people avoid the mistakes I made. To show them there's a better path. "That's good, Sarah. Really good." She looked surprised. "You think so?" "I think people deserve second chances. If they're willing to do the work." I paused. "Are you doing the work?" "Every day. Therapy. Amends. Learning to live with what I did and who I was." Her eyes filled with tears. "I'll never forgive myself for what I did to you." "I know. But I forgave you. A long time ago." "Why?" "Because holding on to anger was killing me. And because I realized something. You were a victim too. Of Marcus, of your own ambition, of a system that makes women believe they have to destroy each other to succeed." Sarah wiped her eyes. "That doesn't excuse what I did." "No. It doesn't. But it explains it. And explanation isn't the same as justification." I smiled. "Keep helping those women, Sarah. Turn your mistakes into meaning. It's what I did. Thank you, Emma. For everything. For being bigger than this." I hugged her. It was brief and awkward and necessary. "Take care of yourself," I said. Walking away, I felt the last piece of weight lift from my shoulders. 10 years after Marcus called me useless, I was giving a TED talk. The topic was resilience. The theater held 2,000 people. Standing on that red circle, under those lights, I felt the full weight of my journey. 10 years ago, I began. Someone tried to destroy me. They succeeded, in a way. They destroyed the person I was. But they couldn't destroy the person I became. I told my story. Not the sanitized version. Not the heroic narrative. The real, messy, complicated truth. About betrayal and revenge. About anger and forgiveness. About how winning doesn't heal you, and how sometimes surviving is enough. I spent years thinking my story was about revenge, I said. About how I got back at the people who hurt me. How I won. But that's not what this story is about. The audience leaned forward. This story is about transformation. About how pain can become purpose. How survival can become strength. How the worst day of your life can become the catalyst for your greatest growth. I paused, my voice thick with emotion. Marcus calling me useless was the most painful thing anyone's ever said to me. But it forced me to ask a question I'd never asked before. Who am I if I'm not what others say I am? Who am I if I'm not defined by my job or my success or other people's opinions? And the answer I found changed everything. I'm the person who decides. I decide my worth. I decide my value. I decide what defines me. The applause started before I finished. It grew louder, more sustained. People stood. I looked out at those 2,000 faces and saw myself reflected back. In the young woman crying in the third row. In the man nodding in the balcony. In every person who'd ever been told they weren't enough. You are not what happened to you, I said, my voice carrying over the applause. You are what you choose to become after it happens. And that choice, that power, belongs to you. Always. After the talk, hundreds of people wanted to speak with me. To share their stories. To say thank you. One woman, probably in her 60s, grabbed my hand. I was fired 30 years ago, she said. I never got revenge. I never became CEO. I just survived. And for 30 years, I thought that meant I failed. You didn't fail, I said firmly. Survival is success. It's the foundation everything else is built on. She hugged me, tears streaming down her face. Thank you. I needed to hear that. 15 years after everything began, I was sitting in a park watching Daniel play with our daughter. Her name was Maya. After my assistant who'd become a director. After the woman who'd reminded me what good leadership looked like. She was 5 years old. Fearless. Funny. Completely unaware of everything her mother had been through to get here. Daniel brought her over, both of them laughing. Mama, watch this. Maya did a cartwheel. It was lopsided and imperfect and beautiful. That was amazing, I told her. I'm going to be a gymnast when I grow up, she declared. You can be anything you want, I said. Daddy says you used to be a boss of a big company. I did. Why did you stop? I looked at Daniel. He shrugged, smiling. Because I realized that being a CEO wasn't the most important thing I could do. Helping people was. And being your mom was. Do you miss it? I thought about the corner office. The power. The satisfaction of watching Marcus fall. The years I'd spent defining myself by my success. Sometimes, I admitted. But I like my life now better. Why? Because now I'm happy. And that matters more than being important. Maya considered this seriously. Then she said, I think you're important, Mama. My throat tightened. Thank you, baby. She ran off to play again, her laughter echoing across the park. Daniel put his arm around me. You okay? More than okay. I leaned into him. I was just thinking about how different my life is from what I planned. How if you told me 15 years ago that this is where I'd end up, I wouldn't have believed you. Would you change anything? It was the question everyone asked. The one I'd struggled with for years. I'd change Marcus calling me useless. I'd change Sarah's betrayal. I'd change the nightmares and the trauma and the years of anger. I paused. But I wouldn't change who I became because of it. Does that make sense? Perfect sense. 20 years after Marcus called me useless, I wrote a book. It was called Useless: How I Turned My Worst Moment into My Greatest Strength. I almost didn't write it. The thought of reliving everything, of putting it all on paper, terrified me. But Maya was 10 now. Starting to understand the world. Starting to see how cruel it could be. And I wanted her to know that cruelty doesn't have to define you. That you can survive it. That you can thrive after it. The book became a bestseller. Not because the writing was brilliant, but because the story was universal. Everyone's been called useless by someone. Everyone's been betrayed. Everyone's wondered if they could survive. Book tours. Interviews. Speaking engagements. And everywhere I went, people told me their stories. Their Marcus moments. Their conference room humiliations. Their survival. One woman in Seattle said, "I was fired last month. My boss said I was incompetent. Reading your book made me realize I'm not crazy. That what happened to me was real and wrong and survivable." A man in Boston said, "My business partner stole everything from me. I wanted to give up. Your book showed me I could fight back." A young woman in Miami said, "I'm still in my conference room moment. Still devastated. But your book gave me hope that this isn't the end." I hugged them all. These strangers who were also family. Connected by pain and survival and the refusal to stay down. 25 years after everything changed, I received an email. The subject line was Marcus Hamilton obituary. I stared at it for a long time before opening it. Marcus had died. Heart attack. He was 68. The obituary was brief. Survived by no one. No mention of his career or accomplishments. Just a few lines acknowledging that he'd existed and now he didn't. I sat with the news for hours. Trying to feel something. Sadness. Relief. Closure. But mostly, I just felt distant. Marcus had been the defining figure of my adult life. The villain in my story. The catalyst for everything. And now he was gone. Daniel found me at the kitchen table, staring at nothing. "You okay?" "Marcus died." He sat down next to me. "How do you feel?" "I don't know. Empty. Like a chapter closed that I didn't know was still open." "Do you want to go to the funeral?" I laughed bitterly. "I doubt there will be one. He died alone. No family. No friends. Just a legacy of betrayal and burned bridges. Is that sad or is that justice?" "I think it's just sad." I looked at Daniel. For all the pain he caused me, all the years I spent angry at him, in the end, he was just a broken person who made terrible choices. And he paid for them. "Do you feel vindicated?" "No. I just feel tired." I took his hand. I spent so many years defining myself in opposition to him. Emma, the woman Marcus couldn't destroy. Emma, the CEO who replaced him. Emma, the survivor. But he's gone now. And I'm still here. Still me. Still trying to figure out who I am when I'm not fighting. "You're a lot of things," Daniel said softly. "A mother. A wife. A friend. An advocate. A fighter. A survivor." He squeezed my hand. "But mostly, you're just Emma. And that's always been enough." I cried then. Not for Marcus. But for the 25 years I'd spent carrying his words like weights. "You're useless." They weren't true. They'd never been true. But I'd spent half my life proving them wrong anyway. Now, finally, I could let them go. 30 years after Marcus called me useless, I stood in front of a college auditorium full of young women. I was 62. Gray-haired. Wrinkled. Proud of every mark time had left on me. "I'm going to tell you a story," I began. "About a woman who was destroyed and rebuilt herself. Who sought revenge and found something better. Who learned that survival isn't about winning. It's about becoming." I told them everything. The conference room. The betrayal. The revenge. The non-profit. The forgiveness. The long, winding path from devastation to peace. When I finished, a young woman raised her hand. "Do you still think about that day? The day he called you useless?" "Every day," I admitted. "But it doesn't hurt anymore." It's just a thing that happened. A chapter in a long book. Do you wish it had never happened? I thought about Maya, now 25 and running her own company. About Daniel, still by my side after decades. About the thousands of women I'd helped. About the life I'd built from rubble. No, I said finally. I don't wish it had never happened. Because without it, I wouldn't be who I am. And I like who I am. It was the truest thing I'd ever said. That night, back in my hotel room, I wrote in my journal. Something I'd done every day for 30 years. Dear younger Emma, I wrote. The one sitting on her apartment floor with a bottle of wine, convinced her life is over. I wish I could tell you that it gets easier. That the pain goes away. That revenge will heal you. But I can't lie to you. It doesn't get easier. It gets different. The pain becomes part of you, woven into your story. Revenge feels good for a moment, then leaves you empty. But here's what I can tell you. You survive. You rebuild. You become someone you never imagined you could be. Marcus calling you useless is the worst thing that will ever happen to you. And also the best. Because it destroys the small, scared, people-pleasing version of yourself. And forces you to become something stronger. In 30 years, you'll stand in front of hundreds of young women and tell them this story. And they'll see themselves in you. And you'll realize that your pain had a purpose after all. Not because the universe planned it. Not because everything happens for a reason. But because you chose to transform it. To take your devastation and turn it into fuel. To use your survival as proof that surviving is possible. So tonight, as you sit on that floor, convinced you're useless, know this. You're not. You never were. And 30 years from now, you'll finally believe it. Love, future Emma. I closed the journal and looked out at the city lights. Somewhere out there, someone was having their worst day. Their Marcus moment. Their conference room destruction. And I hoped they found this story. I hoped it gave them what I needed 30 years ago. The knowledge that this too shall pass. That devastation isn't the end. That you can be broken and still rebuild. That being called useless doesn't make you useless. It just makes you human. And being human, flawed and scarred and still standing, is the most beautiful thing of all. I turned off the light and went to sleep. 30 years of nightmares had finally faded into dreams.